Could Wales do it tomorrow night? Feels unlikely, doesn't it? Welcome back to the channel. France against Wales kicks things off in the Six Nations this year. An intriguing game, possibly it's going to end up being a one-sided game. We shall wait and see. But in this video, I'm going to talk about the two teams. In particular, the Wales team. Very, very strong French side. Many people's favourites. Wales at the moment, as we know, 12 defeats in a row. They're struggling. So we'll get into all of that. Have your say in the comments section. What do you make of these two matchday 23s? And maybe more generally about both of these nations heading into the Six Nations. What's your assessment of where they're at the moment? Also, like the video and hit that subscribe button. So I'm going to start off with France just because I personally feel like there's less to say on the French team. This is who Fabien Galthié has gone with pretty experienced, pretty heavy front row. Roumac comes into the second row, his first start in the second row, because Thibaut Flamand is injured, who is a loss, but as we know of the French, they've got such strength and depth that Roumac is the guy to move into there. Suppose maybe the headline from the whole team selection is Romain Ntamack returning to the team. Picked up a really bad knee injury before the World Cup, it was now, in the World Cup warm-ups, ages ago. I think he got injured, didn't he, just before November as well, so that's why we didn't see him at the end of last year. But he is back in, linking up with Antoine Dupont, who returns after his year with the Sevens. And then Damien Penaud is injured on the wing, so it is Atis Sogbe that comes in place of him. And I suppose part of the reason that I say with France, it feels like there's less to say, is just because we know that they're probably the favourites. We know how strong they are. We know how good they are. The balance they have in their team between kind of some of the power in that pack with the absolute dynamite in that back line is really exciting. So I'm intrigued with France. Part of me hopes they live up to the billing and our expectations. I think if they do truly live up to that, there's a chance they win this Six Nations at a bit of a canter. So is there anyone that is able to cause them more problems than maybe many of us are currently anticipating? And as I've said in previous videos, for any of you that have watched them this week, I think this French team needs to win another Six Nations. They need more silverware. In particular, when you compare them with Ireland and the notable moments and results and series victories that the Irish team has picked up in the last kind of 3, 4, 5 years, compare that with the French. They got that one Grand Slam in 2022. I think for how good this group of players is, they need to be winning more. They've come second, to be fair to them, in 4 of the last 5 Six Nations, but nonetheless, I think they need a victory. And I would expect them to win comfortably against Wales tomorrow. And let's get on to Wales. This is the team that Warren Gatland has gone with. So, when you look at the reaction to the Welsh team news, I saw it, amongst the Welsh fans that I saw, it swung between, actually, do you know what? For the players we have available at the moment, that's pretty much as good as it gets, to 50-point drubbing incoming. So maybe both things can be true at the same time. I don't know. I think the return of Liam Williams and Josh Adams, I personally think is a good thing. I know Liam Williams is a bit older now. Josh Adams isn't that old. Was he like 29, 30, around that mark? Having some experience come back into that back line, I think is going to be a valuable thing. No Talupe Faletau, he's injured. I think he may well have featured had he not been injured. I don't know whether he would have started ahead of Aaron Wainwright. Might have done, but maybe he'd have been a good bench option coming off the bench just to give a bit more experience to the replacements. So I see this Welsh team really as a bit of a mix. If I run through it, Gareth Thomas, Evan Lloyd, Henry Thomas in the front row. Henry Thomas's first start for Wales, having previously played for England. First time he's featured since the World Cup as well, I think I'm correct in saying. And then if you look at Elliot Dee, Nicky Smith, Kieran Azarati, front row is a concern for Wales. It has been a concern for the last few years, really, and how they go up against that meaty French pack, the big front row, is going to be, I would expect, a real challenge. So I think the front row is a concern, without question. I like Will Rowlands in the second row. Dafydd Jenkins is a young guy but has absolutely bags of potential. So I like them as a second row pairing. Jack Morgan, it's great to see him back. I think he could be crucial for Wales. I think he's one of the few players in this Welsh team that could end up going on that Lions tour, possibly working his way into test selection, but the back row is going to be fiercely competitive. Aaron Wainwright now, 50 cap guy, always gives you like a solid level of performance, and then James Botham at 6. Like, I'm looking at that pack, it's not as good as the French, but apart from the front row, I'm thinking, yeah, like I can understand why people are saying this is about as solid a team as we can name at the moment. Thomas Williams at 9 has been good. Ben Thomas at fly half. So this is an interesting one. And when I look at this team, and actually when I look at this back line, in particular in the centres, and at fly half, I suppose, and the lack of experience in this squad, I can't help but think that there could have been a spot for Gareth Anscombe and Max Llewellyn. Llewellyn playing brilliantly in the Premiership for Gloucester. In those centres, do you need something else? I know Tompkins and Watkin now are both fairly experienced, but I just wonder whether Llewellyn could have really added something a bit different in those centres. And then likewise, from what I've heard, and correct me, Cardiff fans, people that watch the URC regularly, about Ben Thomas, is a lot of the best stuff you see him do for Cardiff is at 12. In which case, surely there could have been a role for Anscombe here, as the experience, been there and done it, fly half. Yes, you've still got Dan Edwards in there and you've still got Ben Thomas, but you put an experienced head around them to help guide them and help them grow. That's probably the thing when I look at this squad and I think back to the squad announcement and the players that aren't there, in particular Anscombe and Llewellyn. You look at this 23 and think surely there could have been a spot for them. They would have added value to this group, I think. So the centres is a slight concern. And I wonder whether it would have been good to see Ben Thomas at 12. Maybe they miss a Mason Grady as well and the kind of physicality that he offered. He's obviously injured at the moment. So do you give Wales a chance? It's hard to see, isn't it? It's hard to see. I always think with Wales, underestimate them at your peril. But going up against this French side, I think could be a struggle. I do think Wales can win games this Six Nations. Obviously, the match against Italy is absolutely massive. I still look at the game against England on the final weekend in Cardiff. I have witnessed too many England-Wales games that have been tight and tense, and Wales have been able, despite the odds being stacked against them, to beat England, that I can't look at that and think it will be an easy England win. In particular, and this is where it depends how the Championship pans out, if England lose their first 2 games, which is possible, Ireland away, France at home, they've then got Scotland at home, there'll be massive pressure on that game. It's feasible that England are going into that game against Wales not in the best of form, having already lost at least a couple, maybe even 3 games. In which case, I think the way in which we'll view that match will be very, very different. And they'll close the roof in Cardiff, the crowd will get around it. It's England, it's the biggest game for both nations in the Six Nations. Yeah, I still feel like this Welsh squad is capable of winning 1, maybe 2 games this Six Nations. I don't think it's going to be on Friday night against the French, though. There are obvious glaring issues, I think, in that team. There's some strength in it as well. I like the experience that has been brought back in. But when you compare it with the French team, yeah, it's a tough challenge. But what a challenge. And actually, let's hope maybe that squad and the coaches, they embrace it, they harness it, and they put out a great performance, and it's closer than we expect. What do you reckon? Who do you see winning it? Most of us, I think, are going to say the French, but let me know what you make of the teams. Like the video as well, and also hit that subscribe button. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss a thing. I'll see you in the next one.